Behind the barbed wire of Korea's demilitarized zone sits a tiny village.
This village represents the hope of one day reunifying the Korean Peninsula.
Nestled in the heart of what's otherwise a no-man's land. Here, a community of South Koreans live in the shadow of their enemy, North Korea.
약간 좀 이렇게 좀 두려움이 좀 존재함이 있습니다.
As young people shun a life of semi-captivity, its numbers are dwindling, along with the hope Korea will ever be reunified. Our journey into the demilitarized zone begins at dawn. We pass checkpoint after checkpoint, accompanied by Commander Chris Mercado.
Freedom Main, this is Freedom 6, over. See this kind of blue archway and the white sign beyond it? We're now entering the demilitarized zone.
This is the most militarized border in the world. Hundreds of rounds of artillery point in both directions, and securing this level of access is incredibly rare.
To our left and to our right, we have active minefields. There's more than 2 million mines inside of the DMZ.
Freedom Main, this is Freedom 3.
As we drive towards North Korea, we reach a small cluster of homes. This is the village of Taesung, home to 138 people, many now in their 60s and over. Kim Dong-rae was here long before the Korean War would decide the village's peculiar fate.
그 전쟁 겪은 거는 말할 거 없어요. 아주 말도 못했어. 우리나라에서 일로 포 쏘지, 저쪽에서 일로 쏘지, 여기 중간이야.
Communist troops have invaded southern Korea.
총알이 왔다 갔다 하는 거 다 보여.
A set of documents is signed by General Harrison.
When a ceasefire brought an end to the fighting, the demilitarized zone was created to keep the two warring armies apart. All the villages inside this 2.5-mile wide buffer zone were cleared. But Teasung was allowed to remain, along with a village to the north, to serve as a symbol of peace and hope that one day Korea would be reunified.
일명 자유의 마을이라 합니다.
나라고. 이거 둘이 찍은 거예요.
Dong-rae's husband was shot in the stomach by North Korean soldiers and later died from his injury, leaving her to raise their 6 children in a perpetual state of high alert. There are no shops, restaurants or medical facilities here, and Dong-rae's life has been stressful and lonely.
옛날에 힘들었어. 시전되고 나서도 차가 없었어요. 그 전에 일주일에 한 번 댕기다가 3일에 한 번 댕기다가 지금은 하루에 3번이야.
What do you leave the village for these days?
월요일 하면은 이제 바깥에 나가야지 여기는 없잖아. 난 2달에 한 번씩 해요. 한 달에 한 번 오면 좋을 텐데 귀찮으니까.
The residents farm for their living. With extreme isolation comes an abundance of land.
배추 갖다 먹을 차?
아니야, 괜찮아요.
언젠가 한번 저기 도토리 따라가서 봤는데 근데 왔어. 그래갖고 내가 막 소리 질렀는데 무섭더라고.
Do you pay much attention to whether relations between North and South Korea are good or bad?
서로 등지고 사니까 그런 저기는 없어.
The village is secured by an elite battalion of soldiers from the United Nations Command, a US-led army made up of soldiers from more than a dozen countries. They're supported by South Korean troops.
USA number one.
That's right.
Okay.
The villagers are grateful for their protection, and these displays of affection are common. From the roof of the town hall, we get a clear view into North Korea.
So from where we're at right now, we can see from left to right and right to left, a heavily wooded area denotes the border between North and South Korea. There are no fences, there are no barriers, and there are no walls that separate North and South.
So there is nothing to physically stop the North Koreans from walking over into this village here.
Except for us.
Except for you.
That's right.
North Korea has also been allowed to keep one village inside the DMZ, the village of Kijong. Though no one is thought to live there now.
Given the North Koreans have decided to abandon this village and they don't have people living there, why do you keep people living here at such obvious cost to you guys and such risk?
Many people believe that both Taesung-dong and Gijong-dong exist in the hope of one day reunifying the Korean Peninsula. Failing that, perhaps one day it could pave the way for the normalization of relations between the two Koreas.
What would happen if it disappeared?
It would be a very strong symbol, right? That the terms of the armistice are no longer being enforced.
As we're preparing to move on, we're alerted to a threat.
We were planning just now just to walk up here a couple of 100 metres to a field closer to the North Korean border. But we've just found out in the last half hour that a group of North Koreans have defected directly down here to the south. And so we've just been told by the security team here that it's too dangerous to go there because the North Korean guards, it's likely, are going to be on high alert. And it is a reminder that although in some ways this village feels very peaceful, the situation is incredibly unpredictable.
Given the risks, it might seem strange anyone would choose to live here. But those who were born here, like Park Pil-sun, have their history sewn into this land. The ceasefire line cut him off from his brother.
그 형님 집이 저거 놓으니까 그때 그냥 유교만 난 거예요. 맥히니까 왕래를 못 한 거죠. 아이 못 들었죠. 유교 전이지 뭐.
Did you ever think that 70 years later, North and South Korea would still be divided?
이렇게 길을 줄 알았으니까.
Why have you stayed living in the village all these years?
배운 거 없고 나가야 무슨 뭐 해먹을 거 없고 배운 건 농사밖에 없으니까 이 양반이 그 치매 때문에 어딜 다니질 못해요. 조금도 못 나가게 해요. 그렇기 때문에 맨날 둘이 앉아 텔레비 보는 게 일이야.
The villagers are under no obligation to live here. Habit and necessity are the reasons so many have stayed put, rather than a belief in the role they're playing. Once the risk from the defection has gone, we're taken out to the fields bordering North Korea. This is designated a high-risk field, meaning these armed soldiers must stand guard while the resident harvests the last of his season's rice.
보면은 저 앞에가 이제 그 군사분계선이에요.
The village mayor takes us as close to the border as we can get.
지금 가시는 게 저기 보이면은 그 군사분계선 그 표지판이 있는데 그 넘어는 이제 그 북한입니다.
What's that we can hear now?
이 소리 얘기하는 거예요? 이 소리는 이제 북쪽에서 이제 그 양석이 그 불 푸는 소리예요. 지금은 이렇게 평화로워 보이지만은 이 평화로움 속에도 이 조용한 이 적막함에 깔려 있는 걸 모르실 거예요. 약간 좀 이렇게 좀 두려움이 좀 존재함이 있습니다.
The residents are on the front line of escalating tensions between the North and South. Earlier this year, North Korea branded the South its #1 enemy and said reunification was no longer possible. Both sides have increased their military presence inside the DMZ, meaning the villagers are offered some serious perks to persuade them to stay here. They don't pay taxes or rent or serve in the military.
제가 보기엔 지상 낙원이라고 봐도 별 무리가 없을 것 같아요.
Kim Gyung-rae fought to save this land at the age of 16. But his 6 daughters have all left the village, bound for Seoul. Sleepy Taesung can no longer compete with the bright lights and opportunities of modern-day South Korea. Yoon Kyung is Mr. Kim's 3rd daughter. She left as a teenager to go to school and never came back.
약혼식 때 찍은 사진하고 우리 딸, 막내딸 약혼식 때 찍은.
Has it been sad for you over the years having all 6 of your daughters leave the village?
낭제 막내딸을 보낼 때가 제일 서운했죠.
For years, women have been at a disadvantage here. While men were allowed to marry outside the village and bring their wives in, women were not, forcing them to leave to find love.
잘 계세요? 건강히 계세요? 다음에 봬요. 갈게요.
In the past decade, the village has shrunk by a third as the old die and the young leave. As darkness descends, the threat from North Korea rises.
안녕하세요. 주민 체크 왔습니다.
The soldiers go door to door to check everyone safely inside. The villagers need permission to leave their homes after 7 o'clock.
좀 일찍 오지. 그럼 고기 한 점씩 먹을 텐데.
감사합니다. 안녕하세요.
This curfew is the most restrictive part of village life. As a young couple with 2 small children, the Shin family is unusual. Mi-sun met Kyung-ho at a party, and he convinced her to move in.
저희 이제 친정 부모님이 처음 저희 여기 초대돼서 들어왔을 때 집에 가서 이제 저희 아버지가 거의 그날 밤 잠을 못 주무셨대요. 이 동네 너무 무섭다고.
위험하다고.
엄마 오늘 쉬는 날이지. 제일 큰 게 이제 통금이 있는 게 불편해하죠. 한참 놀 나이인데 밖에서 뭐 아예 밤에 뭐 새벽에 술 먹고 들어올 수 있는 환경이 안 돼서.
Do you think young people can be convinced to stay here?
불편함을 감수하고 살라는 얘긴데 애들한테 쉽지 않을 것 같습니다. 네.
Their children attend the village primary school. There are so few children that most pupils are bussed in from outside.
What do you like about living here?
저희는 또 군대를 가야 되는데 안 갈 수도 있고.
잘 갔다 와.
아이들은 나가서 생활을 시키고 싶어요. 사회생활도 좀 하고 여행도 많이 보내보고 싶고 경험을 많이 시켜주고 싶어요. 이런 추세상 사라지지 않을까 생각이 들어요.
이 대승동목이 최고야 여기.
An increasing number of South Koreans no longer believe in reunification or even want it. And as this dream dies, it's getting harder to convince people to live here, on the front line of a conflict that might never be resolved.